where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
What is going on, Ducks fans? We are back with another episode of the Once a Duck podcast. My name is Sam Schmidt. My voice, it is still recovering from this past weekend at Autzen Stadium. The man sitting here with me, you know him, you love him. The legend, the Hall of Famer. Make it nice and loud for Nick Cody, everybody.
Oh, man, I love when everybody makes it nice and loud on a podcast. Those rare opportunities.
They're going nuts for you.
I've got those voices in my head. And, you know, I'm sure you still have those voices in your head with your ears ringing. Your voice probably isn't the only thing out because the Oregon Ducks got exactly what we both predicted. Well, not exactly. Our predictions were a little off. But Oregon got the win against Ohio State. And guys, we are here with you live right now on the Once a Duck podcast. If you're not already following on Once a Duck, YouTube, Twitter, whatever your social platform is, please catch a follow. And if not, follow my man, Samuel101TS on Twitter, and me, Nick R. Cody on Twitter. And man, it's been so awesome to see all the enthusiasm, but overall, just a win like this, the attention of the nation, and what we had predicted, the biggest game in Autzen Stadium, and we get the win. Oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about, and we want you guys to participate right here tonight with us live. So changing things up, just like it seems like we changed a lot of things up this week, especially starting off first and foremost. No Jordan Birch. The rumor was out there. Sam, how do you think the defense adjusted going into this game without their number one player and coming out of the week as Big Ten Player of the Week in the defensive side?
Well, I don't know what it is about these Oregon football teams, but they seem to only be capable of beating Ohio State when the best player on the defensive line is injured. I don't know what it is. It's a little bit of a running theme at this point. 2021, you know, you had Kayvon Thibodeau on the sideline wearing the baseball hat, waving the towel around. Jordan, he wasn't as active as maybe Kayvon was in that game, but he was on the sideline in the hoodie and the sweatpants. But I'll tell you what, this Oregon team showed up. They did a phenomenal job on that defensive line, especially in the second half. I know, Nick, there's a lot of people that are going to want to hear what you have to say, to hear your perspective on what it's like to have to go up against a group as talented and as deep as that Oregon defensive line. But I'll tell you what, from start to finish, it was a magical day in Eugene.
Hey, man, I'm so jealous I couldn't be there. What a magic day. And, yeah, I think everybody that was a Ducks fan, that, as we talked about last week, that bought those standing room $261 tickets, worth every penny. Unless you didn't bring earplugs, and you're going to have to pay that in substantial ear damages going forward with your hearing aids. Guys, here's the thing. When you're at Autzen Stadium, those of you that are just tuning in to a Ducks podcast for the first time, maybe you're a Big Ten opponent coming up like Purdue this week. Maybe you've already played us like Ohio State. We've been trying to tell you guys, your hearing isn't adapted for this. It's not ready. That's why you saw all the pictures out there of the Ohio State fans like, oh. And I am one of the worst offenders, Sam. Like, this is some of that Once a Duck only podcast information. I was such a bad transition from a fan to a football player because that 2007 season, I remind you, I went to every single game that I got a ticket to as a recruit. So I just started to learn that if we were on defense, whether it was first, second, third, or even fourth down, I was shouting, oh. So when honestly, like, one of my most embarrassing moments was I was doing that shit on the sideline of my first away trip at Boise. And I was like, oh shit, we don't do this here. So the biggest thing I want to say is that there is some level of Oregon fandom that I have not seen since my USC official visit that hit that same decibel level where it doesn't matter. Every single play, it seems like the fans are tuned in and, shout out to everybody in Autzen Stadium that was there to make that moment, including, oh my goodness, there was so much red there. And they were so much fun to have. And no matter what, this was the greatest crowd in Autzen of all time, because that percentage right there of away visitors versus you guys still getting that same decibel level. I still remember on my official visit in 2007.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nick, it was one of those ball games where my ears weren't ringing afterwards. They just hurt. It was just physical pain. It was worth every moment of it. My voice is still raspy. I'm still exhausted. Haven't made up the sleep yet because there was no sleeping after that game. It was too good of a time.
I couldn't sleep after that game. Many of us that weren't even there couldn't sleep after that.
It was an extremely it was a type of ball game you get once a season, once a decade. I don't want to say once in a lifetime because Autzen shows up, but it is going to be difficult to replicate the amount of hype, the amount of energy that was in the stadium that day. And believe it or not, Duck fans, we have one of your favorites here who's going to jump on and join us. Somebody else who had the chance to be at that game as well. Nick, tee him up right here. Let's bring him in here.
Oh, man. Is this my favorite? Is this my favorite guy out there? Hey, we're not afraid to shout out other people in the sports media, especially when they don't call themselves podcasts. Get up right now for Ryan Winter, Sport Chat 503.
What's up?
H-O-F. Finally, I get to do it to you.
Dude, my guys, man, how we doing? Sam, I'm surprised I didn't see you down there, but it was a sea of humanity, you're correct?
There was so much going on. There were so many people, so many places, so many different directions things were getting pulled. I definitely stopped by and saw some mutual friends of ours for sure. Shout out T-Rod and everybody who was over there tailgating their asses off all day. It was a phenomenal experience.
I've invited T-Rod on the podcast right here like 15 minutes ago. So
he would definitely kill it. He's tailgate king, man.
What I could tell, whether you guys met up with each other or not, you guys have the exact same voice.
Yeah, it's gone, dude.
You're right, Nick. And I'll tell you, being in that student section for so many years, I was used to not having it Monday. I was used to being a little scrapey on Tuesday. To still be at this spot on a Wednesday is a little bit different. That's a little bit something that maybe we weren't as used to. But I'll tell you what, if this becomes the norm, as long as those results stay the same, I'll be okay with it.
Hey, I love the commitment. Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining us, man. It's been honestly, in once a Duck tradition, we've considered many times, when do we finally bring him on? And it turns out we just have to have one of the greatest games in Autzen history. The only way we can make it worthy of you and your service here. Thank you, man.
No problem, man. It's awesome. Yeah, I just got back from a little barbecue dinner with the wife. You know, I had to go with a little pie on the outside part of that. Went with the peanut butter pie. I mean, how good is a peanut butter with the chocolate pie, dude? Come on. It's like a giant Reese's, yeah.
Solid.
But yeah, no, you're right about the voice thing. You know, I spent years as a basketball coach. This is kind of my basketball voice for like the entire winter. I would lose it the first week or so of practice, definitely by the first game. And it would rarely ever really come back to full tilt until probably this late spring. But I didn't really even yell that much during the game. That's the crazy thing is this basically I lost all my voice just at the end. I mean, I really wasn't trying to try to gas it up too much. But yeah, I'm still, it feels like I had a massive Mack truck run over me. I was so enthralled with the game, I didn't even realize what I was doing as I was like chest bumping people. I basically was almost headbutting people at the point. I was in my car afterward in the post-game show, and my son hit me in the chest for something I said, hit me again. And he just slapped me. I woke up the next day. I was like, God, I don't know why my chest hurts so bad, but something's going on here. I had to go back and watch the film on that one. And But yeah, man, I mean, like I think Sam, right when I came on backstage, you said it's like once in a lifetime. You don't want to say once in a lifetime, but once every decade or so, at least maybe 5 years or so, where you get one of these. The last one, obviously, is that Washington one, but it has to end with the last play in my mind. You can't really do the rushing of the court or the rushing of the field when you're waiting for 5 minutes for the game to get over.
Well, I mean, the only one I can compare it to is the War of the Roses, right there, and I still remember catching my mom trying to jump down from the bandstands right there, and I remember thinking like, who does this? And then I realized, family mental health, probably anyone in my family for sure.
A sea of passion, HOF. I mean, in a sea of passion, you're ready to lift the car up off somebody in that moment.
But when you've had 3 knee replacements,
how about a fourth after that one?
I almost had my first heart attack.
Yeah.
But now I'm prolonging it until my comedy career is the one to be responsible instead of football. So
okay. Stress related.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well. Yeah.
Well, yeah, to go back to this game though, the energy was absolutely awesome, and I'm so glad it happened for everybody. And also the big difference now is it's all captured, right? It's all captured on a variety of different settings. They've got the cinematic recap now. They've got all the other sort of stuff where that really wasn't the case then. Even the CJ Verdell touchdown era, there's a video, obviously video.
Oh,
man. It's not done the same way it's done now.
I'm hoping there's videos deleted from that storming of the field in 2018 because I acted a fool for sure.
Yeah, I was on the field for that one too. I was going crazy. And there again, it's just there's certain moments where you think that's what you're supposed to do. I had a conversation with a guy I work with, and he's like, kind of, well, I don't think you need to do that again. And he's a Duck fan. He's a alum, and he was like, hey, we're now better than that kind of a thing. And I was like, dude, kind of F off. I basically was like, dude, you weren't there. Like, come on now. Like, you can have fun. Like, it's okay to have fun. Like,
we're better than that when we're in the SEC and they fine us for it.
Well, I also think that's like, don't try to limit other people's fun. Like, just because they want to have fun, like let them have fun. Like, I do think the court storming is a little bit difficult as a basketball coach for all the years I coached basketball, because you're so close. Crazy things do happen. You don't want to have fans run up on these guys and talk some junk or whatever. But at the same time, like, it's their time. Like, they just won a big game. They get to celebrate it.
Well, and gentlemen, I'll tell you, in my time in those Oregon student sections, I had 3 rushes that I remembered sincerely and fully. The Washington rush, the Washington State rush the year afterwards, which I think was far less celebration and much more relief, if you will.
The last field goal?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the only basketball one on my record, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, whenever DeAndre Ayton played for Arizona.
Yes.
That was a big Oregon win.
Yes.
That was a fun court rush kind of game. And that was one where, Oregon had been so dominant on their home floor for so many years. Then the year before that, it seemed things had gotten a little tricky. I remember that streak had ended when Boise State hit a half quarter for the win. And the home court at Matthew Night, it felt a little different.
That was a dagger, man. I know that was brutal.
Exactly. And it was brutal. And it was one of those things where it felt like getting that win against Arizona brought some magic back. And that's what the key to the rush is, I think. Sometimes you can try to quantify it, say, oh, you have to beat this. You have to do better than this. You have to achieve this. It's a feeling in the room. It's a feeling in the stadium when everybody has that burst, that moment of just complete and total relief and adulation. That's when you know it's time to have it happen. Even the security moved out of the way. They knew what it was going to be. Everybody did. And you know what? Credit to just about every single worker of security, sheriff that was in the building. They all just very wisely surrounded the field goal post and let everybody do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it's up there in all of those students on the field moments up there in Autzen. It probably peaked all time, like right up there with the guy that we saw with a game day sign that was out there. That was the guy that Chip turned around and said, "Hey, shut up!" Right there live. Was that Stanford?
That's awesome. That one. I'm not sure what game that was. That's a classic moment, though.
And he brought the sign to game day. I'm like, man, that's full circle of exactly how we got here.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, the game day stuff is hilarious. I think that also, like, every year it feels like they're trying to outdo themselves with the game day. Now the Ducks rolling up in a Corvette with the Gucci outfit on or whatever. I mean, it's hard to outdo yourself every single time, but it seems like Oregon finds a way to do it.
Well, and Rain, one thing we usually like to go through on this podcast is we love to talk about just what that game day experience looked like for both of us. We'd love to ask you the same thing. Just walk us through a little bit of what that day was like, start to finish for you, just from even getting out of bed in the morning to when you finally got back down there after an Oregon win.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah. So we didn't go to game day in the morning. My son was at Oregon this year. He was there. I take my mom and my wife to the game. My mom, shouts out to my mom. She's a trooper. She's in her 70s. My wife and I both have gone to countless games for the last 20 years. So it's pretty easy setup for us. We take it down 99, take it down I-5, a little bit of a blend. I try to not be on I-5 too much. We live in Portland. We get down there. The crazy part was I have a press. Well, I've done everything parking wise over all these years, but lately my son has a press pass, so we get a press parking. So we're parking in Autzen for the last couple of years. But this game we didn't get a press pass because of too many press passes out there, too many park. So we were trying to park across the street, and it was full. And it's the first time I've ever seen the Masonic Lodge, the Boy Scout Lodge, and the Juvie Center all full. And it's crazy. When I was a kid, I was where the Elks Club was. I used to swim across the street over there as a kid, right? So it's changed a lot over there, but there's rarely have I ever been to a game. I don't think I've ever seen the Boy Scout lot completely full, and it was full 3 hours before the game. So I was kind of panicking. I drove down by Kowloon. I took the right. I went down in there by all those little dentist offices and everything all down there. Finally found a parking spot down in there, hung out a little bit, off to the road, met up with a bunch of different people. I have a bunch of friends with tailgates. One of my good friends, I'm an Elk. So speaking of, shout out to the Elks. I swim at the Milwaukee Elks in Portland. We got the great pool. My buddy who I hang out with all the time, I took him to the Boise State game, maybe. And anyway, he's got a great tailgate right across the street from the Mo and or in that parking lot area of the Mo. And it was ripping. Bunch of people around there. Bunch of Sport Chat fans. Bunch of Ducks, obviously, but a bunch of Ohio State fans as well. Got in the stadium maybe a half hour to kick off or so, and freaking started ripping it, man. Was in line. I didn't buy one beer for myself. People bought me beer all day long. Not even people who knew me through anything other than just I was in line with people, and they were like, "Dude, forget this, man. Who's drinking what? I'm buying this round." They would just at the last second just get the fervor. So I had numerous Coors Lights bought for me in the first half there. I was looking for Josh Pate. I saw Josh Pate last time I was there when he first came out to Autzen, and he and I have had a little text back and forth since that moment. So I was trying to get with him to say hello to him. Never saw him before the game. Had the first half. I was also trying to see the Will Compton and Taylor Wan, buzz with the boys guys. Saw them at halftime. Got to chill with them for a bit, chat with them. And then after the game, in pure randomness, in my full elation, I saw Josh Pate. He was like one of the first guys I saw on the field. So it was like it all worked out. But yeah, no, the whole through the day thing for me, I tried to keep it like a very normal day. I didn't try to make it out to be more than it was. It was just another game at Autzen. But I knew there was going to be a lot of people there. We always try to get to the stadium 3 hours before the game. This time I was kind of panicked. Everything worked out just fine. A lot of Ohio State fans thought they were very confident. They were very kind, though. Not a lot of trash talk or anything. I had great interactions with them. And then during the game, I just kept trying to tell myself, this is actually happening right now. You're actually here right now in the moment right now. This is the thing we've been waiting for. This thing we've been looking forward to this whole time. And now it's actively happening. And the Ducks are in it. Should have got that first interception. Didn't get it. They went down and scored. I was like, okay, this is going to be a long day. It's going to be a close one, just like we thought. Then they come back and forth. Then they give up some points, and they're chasing those points. They're down 2, and then you get the field goal. Now you're up 1 at halftime, and you're like, okay, we're up one at halftime against Ohio State. I'm at halftime, and I'm like, this is great. And then the third quarter starts off. They don't really do anything in the third quarter. They get that defer, but then they get a 3 and out. Now I'm like, okay, you're now behind the 8 ball. Now it looks like they're going to take over. Ohio State looks like they're going to go up 2 scores. Craziness goes down. Then the onside kick thing happens. I mean, or that happens, I guess, in the second quarter. I kind of lose my mind a little bit. But my point being is that then it gets to the fourth quarter, and it's like, okay, this could really go down this way, you know, and you know it's going to be close. So now you're thinking whoever has the ball last is going to win it. And then it's that 6-minute mark, and you're like, dude, can they stretch this thing out for 6 minutes? They do a pretty good job. They get it down to 2 minutes, and then they can't kick it in the end zone. And that one was a real – I felt like that was the game right there. I felt like they went down. They had that play. I think it was Noah Whittington got down to like the 1, and then they couldn't punch it in. And I felt like they were pretty vanilla with that third down call. And then they went with the kick. And then it was like, can the defense actually hold on? And then that play breaks at the very end with the 12 team or the 12 player thing, which on the field, it was kind of hard to see how that all went down and how that play worked out. It's a lot easier when you do the video and slow it down. But from my perspective, I thought we had basically won the game right there. And then they threw the flag, and I'm like, oh, my God, I can't believe they just penalized us for something again on this kind of a play. And then it set up that run, and that run, you know, I thought they did a great job of pushing them off the spot, forcing the run. I think they did a great job of the backfield, and you could see the clock ticking down. And the way I looked at the thing, I saw the 6 seconds, and of course I just mentally start clicking it off in my head as he's running with the pursuit or whatever. And then I'm thinking, this game is over, dude. As soon as he hits the thing, I'm like, it's over. And I felt very similar to like the Russell Wilson spiking the ball in the Rose Bowl, because there was something about like they effed up the last play. You know, they should have had one more play, and they didn't. They screwed the thing up. And so it was this kind of elation moment of like, not only the Ducks won it, but Ohio State screwed this thing up to allow the Ducks to win it. It was like a double-edged kind of sword of emotion. And it was like, it was unbelievable, because I went from one of the lowest feelings to one of the highest feelings as fast as I possibly could. And that kind of also builds to the rush of the field, that roller coaster of emotion that happened in those last couple plays was just absurd. And I've never felt anything like that. Versus the CJ Verdell touchdown, it's an overtime. You knew it's coming. They didn't get their points. All the Ducks had to do was get a touchdown. Here it is. It's goal to go. Fire this thing in. You knew it. You could feel it coming. This one, you had no idea what was going to happen. This was like a complete can of worms they opened up, and the thing just exploded.
Well, I think that's a very apt description of it. A couple of things I wanted to hit on that you mentioned. First and foremost, shout out the Milwaukee Elks. I remember in high school, that's where we had to go to do some play practice when I was doing a little bit of sports and theater at the time. That's where they had us going over for there. So shout out the Milwaukee Elks.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up at Southeast Portland. I went to school in the Milwaukee area.
Oh, that's dope. I grew up in Southeast as well, man. I went to LaSalle.
Oh, that's where my little brother went. Beautiful.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely
Let's
beautiful.
go, dude.
But you absolutely nail it right there. And I'll tell you, I like your approach to it in terms of treating it like any other game, because frankly, I can't say that I was that resourceful in the moment, able to like take it that well, because frankly, I know we got down there earlier than we would normally get down there, and we did the full thing. We went to the far side of campus, walked past where game day had been. We went by the Heisman house, said what's up to friend of the podcast, Joey Harrington, for a little while, saw what was going on over there.
Joey's a legend, by the way. Joey's a year younger than me. I grew up with that whole thing. Joey's uncle baptized me.
I don't know if there's a more. If
you want to tell me, dude? That's legit. That's legit. My mom and his dad grew up together. Like, that's old school.
Man, we got lots of Harrington connections here on the podcast.
As you should. Sure. As you should. We freaking love Joey, dude.
Joey's the man. He was the man at the Heisman house, saying hi to everybody, being so gracious with his time as always. But then, man, you absolutely nailed it in terms of just talking about really being there in that moment. It was such a crazy feeling just to sit there, observe all of it, really feel it right there. And I'll tell you, it wasn't a big day for trash talk, and I wouldn't even consider it trash talk because I was speaking to the entire group when I said it, but there were a group of Ohio State fans right behind us where we were sitting. They were nice as could be the entire game, cheering when Ohio State scored, but I wouldn't expect any different. But during that onside kick happens. Oregon recovers it. Everyone's going nuts. And I meant this in no way toward Ohio State. I meant this in terms of the kind of football game we were in. I just turned around to them and just went, welcome to hell, guys. This is what we're doing today. This is the kind of mess that we're having today. This is an onside kick, crazy ball game kind of day.
Like an onside kick like I've never seen before. A person who's somewhat of a fan of kicking more maybe than other people, I think I've seen just about every type of onside kick. The bullet, the laser beam at the half field
shot.
I have watched enough Sports Chat 503 to know, Ryan, you don't watch enough movies, but that was clearly out of The Water Boy.
Oh, the Water Boy had one of those. Who is that? Adam Sandler?
No, Adam Sandler wasn't the kicker. Though.
No, okay.
The kicker
the ball,
specifically, right? I don't remember what. Like, I believe he envisioned. He figured out which person on the lineup was going to be his bitch, and he found his bitch.
Hey, I could see those guys, Coach Lorig, watching the Water Boy, being like, we need to get this in our bag.
Lanning is just around my age range right here, and I know for a fact that's,
the guy was so scared when he got kicked. It looked like a thing blew up in front of him.
If it wasn't his inspiration for that, then it was at least his inspiration for going on the Dan Patrick show this morning, dude. That guy gets more Adam Sandler movie cameos than anybody. Dan Lanning's trying to set himself up.
Yeah, Dan Patrick. I try to listen to Dan Patrick a little bit in the morning on the way to my school. I only have about a 10-minute commute, so I don't get to listen that much, but I'll pop on, listen to Fritzy or those guys a little bit. But yeah, no, I do think that this had everything. It was a storybook. It had the storybook ending, but everything in that game went Oregon's way. I mean, they had that fumble, flipped
everything.
Should have gone for the first one. I mean, imagine if they get the interception on the first freaking possession, flip the field right away and take it in for a touchdown. I mean, that could have changed the entire complexity of the game. And instead they don't. They go on that big breaker and break it right down the field like it was nothing, score like that fast. You're like, okay, this team is for real. And I like the idea that it's like, speaking of movies, it's like the setup of the end of Rocky 1 where you're getting Rocky 2. The way this thing ended, it ended just perfectly. Like, cue the music now, credits. And then all of a sudden it's like part 2, and it starts with that last play. It starts with him sliding with the 0-0, and now you're on to the next one. It looks like this is too good of a situation.
Rising up, back on the streets.
Exactly.
Find a matchup in Indianapolis.
Well, and then also the Ohio State fans were immediately talking right after the game. They said, hey, man, great game. See you in Indy. You should definitely go to Indy. You guys all got to get there. It's super fun, this, that, and the other. Because we're kind of on this level of like, do we really want to go out there for the championship games? I used to love to go to Vegas, and now exactly, literally on the tab behind this one, that's the StreamYard tab, is round trip to Indianapolis, PDX to Indy. I'm just testing the water. I'm not buying anything. I'm just testing the waters. We're seeing what it looks like.
Man, that's
everyone. When you're watching this podcast in the future, and Ryan was there, just remember he was just thinking about it now. But we all knew.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that response from Ohio State fans of, look, we'll see you guys in Indy, that was communal. I think everybody had that experience. Yeah. I don't know one Ohio State fan after that game who wasn't in some way either talking about being impressed with Autzen Stadium, being willing and excited to see Oregon again come December, or both. I heard a lot of both, and I think that's something that the Big Ten and college football as a whole would love to see, would be a rematch of these two teams playing in Indianapolis. But obviously, a lot of work for both to do before they get there.
Yeah, I think they're clearly the two best teams, and so why wouldn't everybody want it? And it was such a great – I mean, I know the national media and all the people who pull the strings on all these little things or whatever, they don't want to have rematches. It's just not in their bag, but this was such a good part 1. Why would you not want to have part 2? I think part 2 better be better than any other matchup you have out there.
I'll be here with your counter argument. You guys debate. but I would rather see Penn State in the final. What do you guys think?
Penn State in the championship game against Oregon.
When I say final, I mean Big Ten final.
Big Ten. Okay,
right
against Oregon. Yeah, because Oregon hasn't seen Penn State. Yeah, that'd be fun for sure. I mean, dude, if Penn State beats Ohio State, that'd be freaking amazing.
I would say I rank it this way. I want to see Penn State or Ohio State. And if we see Indiana, I'll be happy to see them because we are there. Right. What do you guys think about that ranking?
I would rather, I think Penn State would be an easier opponent for Oregon the second time around. I think it's hard to beat a team twice. Yep. And I think that they would be a little bit more one-dimensional than Ohio State can be. But, dude, yeah, no, I think I was at that Rose Bowl first play, Kajana Carter, 80-yard touchdown right to the house. It'd be nice to get a little revenge from the Nittany Lions.
Well, I'll tell you what, I like that matchup, and I find it very interesting from, several perspectives. But one of them I think definitely that's another great trenches game. That would be another phenomenal trenches game. I think when Oregon and Ohio State match up, obviously a lot of people are watching that line of scrimmage for sure, and Oregon winning that line of scrimmage throughout the game was a huge factor in them coming away with the victory. But also, you are just inundated with skill players with Ohio State, whether it's those running backs who Oregon did a phenomenal job on, say for maybe one or two plays, or those receivers who, credit to them, they did get theirs in this game. Ohio State brings a lot of flash, whereas a Penn State game, that's a straight punch in the mouth. It's a hockey fight type of game. You're each grabbing each other by the sweater and just taking the best kind of swings you can. I think it depends on the type of ball game you want to see and the type of challenge. I think the college football world might prefer the Ohio State game, but I definitely see where you're coming from with enjoying Penn State and wanting to see that matchup. Plus, it's a team you haven't played yet, and that's always fun.
Well, and imagine that matchup of tight ends right there. That feels like that would be the opportune moment. Instead of giving, Sadiq some of these fly sweeps, we finally open up all our tight end weapons to match up. What we just saw was a record-setting performance from Penn State tight end last week.
Well, he looked phenomenal in that game. He snapped the ball, he ran in a touchdown, he caught a touchdown. I'm surprised that they didn't throw him in there on defense a little bit just to get his number on the field some more. Seeing a guy like that go up against a very talented Oregon defense, that will always be a lot of fun and be very exciting. And plus, I don't think there'd be a lot of better opportunities for these Oregon tight ends. You mentioned Kenyon Sadiq, but also a guy like Terrence Ferguson, who we know we're going to be watching on Sundays come next year. See him be able to flex his muscles a little bit and get out there.
Absolutely, man. Slow down, Sam. Man, you're spitting the information so quickly right there. You're so excited to spit that out. But I believe, man, the talent, not just at tight end, this Oregon defensive line. We have seen some NFL talents right here, right now. And the guy that we got to shout out that hasn't really gotten enough besides, I guess, our former rival, Chad Ochocinco, out there giving him the most praise. Mateo Uiagalelei, man, Uiagalelei. I'm going to mess it up many times until he just dominates so many games that everybody gets it right. But hey, they figured out Kayvon Thibodeau. So this guy right here, man, he made such a difference in this game. What do you guys feel about our defense stepping up, especially in the absence of Jordan Birch?
Yeah, I think Mateo had a lot on his shoulders. There was a lot of pressure for him and Tatum TOT as well. I thought that Marion Winston really stepped up, number 32. Shouts out to Central Catholic, a little Portland action there. But yeah, no, to me, Mateo is the guy, and I got a good relationship with his dad, Big Dave. Shout out to Big Dave. I'm doing yard work yesterday. No, I don't even know what the hell day it was now. Everything's a blur. I guess it was Monday or Sunday or Monday or whatever, but I'm just doing yard work. And then Dave calls me out of the blue, and we're chatting for like 20 minutes. Like, as I'm just raking my leaves, I'm planting grass seed and stuff. I'm doing yard work. Like, all right, Dave, I got to, And, bro, he's just so pumped up because my son, if you go to Big Dave's page, there's a picture of Mateo stretching. And he looks way bigger than he has looked since he got here as a freshman. He's a tall dude. And so he's fairly lean for the size and frame that he has, right? He's slowly filling it out, right? But the tat is perfect. Tat looks great over the summer. It's all glistened up. He's got it all swolled up. His neck's getting bigger. Everything is like filling in, you know. And my son took that picture, and now Big Dave's put it on all his stuff. And Dave said to me, "Hey man, what did you think of that game?" You know, because I saw him after the game. I was obviously on cloud 9, but in the conversation I had with him, I was like, "Man, I'm really proud of his intelligence. If you watch the film, he just contains the edge really well. He moves up the ladder. He spins his guy around. He's able to come down the exact same space, maintain that whole area on the edge, and be fast enough to get after the running back, be fast enough to chase a quarterback. You know, that first play of that last possession, I mean, I've watched this game, it feels like 50 times by now. That first play, Rodgers goes down. He doesn't even get touched, right? He falls down, right? And you could just feel the heat coming. Mateo, all he saw was number 10. That's what I said to Dave. And he was like, that was kind of the move. And then there was another great play where he's on the left side and he takes on the tackle. And then a pulling guard comes in. He takes on the pulling guard, sheds both of them, and makes the tackle. And I'm like, bro, who is this dude? And these guys are sophomores. Both played a lot of really quality snaps last year as freshmen, both him and Tatum Teoti. And I think both those guys deserve a lot of credit because when Birch went down, they didn't miss a beat. And those guys in the middle, Harmon and Caldwell, I think both have done really well coming in here and been a really important addition to this defensive front. But those guys on the edge have made the big difference. And I remember for years we were talking about why can't we get a pass rush? Why can't we get a sustained pass rush when we need to out of the defensive tackles, defensive ends? And you would have it in bits and pieces, right? You had it with KT, but maybe you didn't have it with somebody else or something. And there's these gaps. Now it feels like you're getting it from everywhere. You're getting it from the left side, from the right side. You're getting it up the middle. Guys are making plays. Guys are taking the ball away in the middle. And I just feel like that defense needs to get a lot of credit because what they did on Saturday was take a very, very good offensive team and hold them down to basically 30 points. I mean, 31 points for this team is quite an endeavor. And then on the flip side, I felt like Oregon's offense left a lot of points on the board and could have scored 40-something points on this Ohio State defense that looked to be the best defense in the country on paper and incredible top to bottom NFL guys, right? Yeah. So I just felt it was a win-win across the board.
Yeah, and just for everybody out there that you go back and watch previous episodes, please. But our first live stream episode last week, we were filling in for an excellent interview with Jordan Scott that kind of predicted a lot of this, like especially with Mateo. We got to have Jordan back on to specifically remind us like exactly what he was telling me and Sam. But you could tell just his technique is so honed in this year, and it really, really shined in this game. And Jordan Scott was like the first one to really hone me into it, and I was very happy because watching the first half of this game, man, I was tuned into it like especially with Jordan being out. But man, as Sam can attest, he was already pointing out the level of technique and depth on this defensive line right now has given us really that step up to the SEC Big Ten level.
Well, gentlemen, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, see, I just had that thought of like, well, when KT went out, everybody talks about how that was the big deal, but also remember Flo went out too.
Yep.
Of that Ohio State game, and Keith Brown was playing as a true freshman and making plays, man. And so it's like I think there's a lot to be said about giving the guys the opportunity to step up, and then when they do that, have that opportunity, they take and run. So go ahead, Sam. Sorry to cut you off there, bud.
No, you're totally fine. I just wanted to say first and foremost, it was a second ago, but I'm winding back to it. Follow Rand's son, Darby Winter. Follow him, Darby W Photos on Twitter. Check it out. I've loved the work he's been doing so far.
Oh man, that shot of Will Howard when he's looking at the scoreboard
before he's sliding. Right as he's sliding, he's like, "Oh shit."
I can't tell you how many times I've had that look in practice, and it wasn't even anything but like our 2-minute drill at the end. I'm going, oh fuck, we still go. I recognized like that look at that scoreboard of like, oh no, But what a great shot. Fantastic work he's been doing. God, you got to be so proud for him.
I mean, I am. And I think that the key concept for me on that is that he's done the work. So it's like we put him in a good place to be in that position. And then he's done his part. He's always answered the call every single time. He was a great player for me on the team that I coached for years. He was never the best player on our team, but he always worked the hardest, right? He was always one of the guys that did all the dirty. I always said he was our worm. He was our Dennis Rodman, right? He'd do all the dirty work, right? And get that lunch pail. And a lot of these other guys who just want to shoot threes, put the ball between their leg and spin move on dudes and get little Euro steps on these guys. Everybody was into the Euro step, right? That was when that first was really getting hot. And my boy would just be in there posting some dude up, get a little drop step on him, get a little rebound, rip that thing out of somebody's hands, throw some bows. So yeah, he does the same thing basically. You know, you have to kind of fight for it as a photographer. You gotta run from place to place. You got to get to your spot. You got to be a little aggressive. You got to be a bit of an athlete. So yeah, my son gets after it. So thanks for that, Sam.
Us SOGC grads all know if anybody can scrap, it's people like Dan Morrison. So
yeah, you got all your gear with you. You're all geared up. You got to hold all your shit together and everything.
Well, gentlemen, mentioning that D-line was a phenomenal place to have stopped conversationally, just because for our tape time segment this week, a few of the plays, they have to do with the trenches. Right? And if you want to stick around, we would love to have you here while Nick breaks down some of these bigger moments from the Oregon-Ohio State game. The first one, of course, at least the one that I know that we had to get to, it was a huge moment in the game because, as we mentioned, Ohio State, they came out and they scored on that first drive. They marched right down the field. And on Oregon's first possession, it ended in a punt. It started to get a little nervous there in Autzen Stadium the minute you gave Ohio State the ball back. But big Derek Harmon in the middle came through with a huge first quarter play. We're going to take a look at it right here. Nick, I would love to get your reaction to this from an offensive line perspective, just kind of seeing what happened here and what Derek was able to do and identify to make such a big play here.
Well, first and foremost, anytime you have anybody like this defensive front right here, you're not going to be confused by anything right here. You know, the safeties are right now the one's like right there within the hash. You got one play in the middle of the field, and you're on that hash. You're not worried about anything. But the problem is right now, if you are listening to Autzen Stadium right now and the NBC broadcast did not do any favors to this, you could not hear how loud it was for this offensive line. So just getting off the ball at the right step. So as soon as you watch this, our defensive line beats them off the snap count. And right here, immediately, you have pressure in the backfield. The quarterback has no idea because in terms of this, he's turning his back. There's no option read to this. It's immediately right here. And just the immediate reaction of Derek Harmon to not just secure the tackle, but attack the football in this scenario. Oh, my goodness. Considering you just basically seen our defense do the exact same thing that was not able to be reviewed for an interception, this is an all-time defensive line play. Up there with the Jadeveon Clowney. This isn't going to get the same amount of attention, but NFL draft scouts hopefully are watching this right now because getting right through the interior of the offensive line, busting through and taking the football away and giving it back to your team is something you do not see from a lot of interior 3 technique or 1 technique defensive lineman, and he could play either right now in the NFL, in my belief.
Well, and credit also to the sophomore. We've mentioned him a few times for his chance to come in here when he was playing a little offense, getting in there as an extra fullback. But Amari Washington, he's the first one that really breaks through right there, forces the running back inside right into Harmon's arms.
Yeah, our noses this year, Amari and Caldwell, right, is that they have been tremendous at just creating problems for the center. And when you create problems for the center, you can create problems for the guard. The guard can't help the tackle, and right then you have a problem right there, and you secure your tackles one-on-one with a guy like Mateo, or when we get him back, Jordan Birch. That's how you create a lot of these problems. And right now, Derek Harmon is reaping a lot of the benefits, and he is familiar very well with the Big Ten and was able to set the tone for this game right there with that play.
Hey, Sam, can you run that back for just 1 second?
Absolutely.
Can you put that play and can you run it back to the beginning and then put it on like a slow-mo?
Absolutely.
You go into like the setting thing and
No problem at all.
Okay. Here's the thing that I saw right out of the gate when I started to watch a lot of Ohio State film this year. Just go ahead and run it. Is that when Chip was here, he loved to pull, right, Nick?
Yep.
They don't pull that much at Ohio State. They run straight ahead blocking oftentimes, and it feels like to me they leave their guys in one-on-one situations. Because if you go back and see it again, these guys leave and go to the second level immediately. They don't even help.
Yeah.
Boom, gone. They're already moving down. Exactly. Whereas what Elite Terry teaches is a real shot to the hip for that help on the way out to that second level.
You got to clean up color. You see the opposing team color. You got to clean. All right. I'm really glad you brought this up because
right there, I mean, look at 74. Give the man some help.
Yeah. No, not just like you don't just need to pull here, but this is what happens when you have a team that's running a zone scheme in an opposing stadium and they're trying to really press the matter. Like you've really been psyched up on this play. And I know this because playing in Autzen Stadium, my very first downs, man, how convenient it turns out. My very first play against Purdue, we're running inside zone and I'm the backside right guard. And my job is to work with the center towards the backside inside linebacker. And you know what? I get out there for my first play. I'm so fucking psyched. I do exactly what most of these Ohio State linemen are. I don't look for color. I don't look to help my man. I run exactly to where I expect the linebacker to be and runs right by me for a tackle in the backfield.
I mean, and like if you run it back to the beginning and play that again, I mean, look at 74. The man needs help, and it happens within a blink. I mean, all the center needs to do is for 1 second look left. Look left for a second.
Yep.
They're double teaming to the right, and they're leaving a one-on-one across the guy's face. Like, how horrible could this be for 74? He knew it right out of the gate, and he's just lucky his guy didn't make the tackle, right? But instead, he blew the whole process up. And I love this other thing from the defensive lineman perspective. And I don't know how much defensive line you played, but how much fun is freaking defensive line?
I had to start. I had to start both ways for 4 years. So,
but what I love about a defensive line, if you go back to that, see it real quick and play that again real quick, is I love how, like you said, attack the ball. Harmon basically comes in, attacks the ball, and just lays down with it.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite things. He's not even actively tackling the guy. He's got the ball now. He's got the ball now. He just lays down. What a slick move that is. And again, I just love how linemen use their leverage and use their angles. And you're going to try to take that ball out of this guy's hand at 300 pounds, falling down using gravity. And here you are as a running back who just gave the ball up. Sorry, that's our ball.
And I love your analysis there to bring it back. I wish we had the all 11 film so we could see from the end zone because man, I love the you can tell this play is not going to be successful from everybody's first two steps.
Oh yeah,
because they are not gaining ground upfield. They are so hesitant to catch and relief, except for the one guy that works up, and that leaves the gap right there for Harmon to come through because he's not helping your center.
Exactly. There's no one left. All these guys are gone. Look at this thing. The guy runs through, and then all of a sudden now here goes the double team. See ya. Double team's gone, and there goes your tackle.
Yep.
And why is 56 down here blocking down? Why? You're 10 yards away from the play, and your guys in the backfield getting not only tackled, getting the ball ripped out.
That's again like when we've had Mark Asper back on here before. Those are just those relations that you have to have with reps in practice. Just to know we're not going to have that happen because I don't want to be pointing the finger at you. You don't want to be pointing the finger at me. And you can see right here, Ohio State's looking, man. All right, well, who do we blame here? All right, we'll blame the Autzen Stadium crowd.
Exactly. And this is before 77 gets hurt. This is before they have these injuries that start to decimate that offensive line. You start doing this same thing in the fourth quarter, and these boys are getting after it. They're getting their ears back at that point.
That and the way the heads are hanging right here is the same
culture.
Look
at the body language.
It's the same culture. It's the same culture we've seen this week with everybody begging until we get a rule change. But we'll get to that.
Sure. But yeah, you can see the body language right out of the gate. They know they're in trouble.
Well, gentlemen, I know that we could talk about this play all day long, but there are a couple more that we need to get to. The next one, it was the biggest run play of the day for Ohio State by a country mile. We're going to see it here in just a second. It's the big run that we saw here. End of the first quarter, it really was able to set up what was a big Ohio State drive into the second quarter. This should be the play right here. Unless it's not, which often happens. But while I pull this down to get it set up, I would love to hear from you guys, just in general, before we look at the specific play. What did you notice that Oregon was doing along that defensive line throughout the entire game, not just on that one play, but throughout the ball game, to sort of limit Ohio State in terms of what they were able to do on the run for a team that had been kind of gashing a lot of teams?
Which one? Well, I was just going to say, I think we've done a tremendous job, and especially highlighted in the Ducks versus them videos that have been 10 times better than anything we've seen produced from HBO for Hard Knocks this season for whatever team they want to cover. But beyond that, we can see that they have so many different personnel alignments that they've thought out and grouped out that without being there in the locker rooms and the team meetings, they have thought about every single scenario that has been presented right there in film, how they're going to counteract it. And they have so much of a depth of personnel that this Oregon, especially on the defensive line, hasn't seen before. Even, a lot of people have compared losing Kayvon Thibodeau and still winning that Ohio State game. But the depth on our defensive line right now, and just regardless of what you determine in terms of talent, just the mass up front. This is a Big Ten team. I can tell you it would be a struggle for any one of the teams I played on to match up with the defensive line depth-wise, just because there's not that level of guys that we just see. All right, you lose your nose tackle. Oh, bring in another guy that's 300-plus pounds. Tell that to any one of our national championship contender teams. They would have loved that luxury.
Yeah, and I think also the athleticism, right? These are 300-pounders with speed and strength, that combination we rarely see. I think the other big thing is just pad level. I think it's just old school pad level, man. These guys stay low. They drive off the ball. They were picking these freaking offensive linemen for Ohio State
built
off the ground. Yeah. Yeah, they're built. They're absolutely they're a little literally a bulldozer. And the greatest thing I think about this is, like you said, is they're built like a Big Ten team. When Oregon got matched up to go into the Big Ten, everybody was like, "Oh, but can they handle the trenches?" Little did they know that this whole trench thing had been going for quite some time. One, Oregon's offensive line has always been good ever since before you were there, Nick. It's been good for a long time. Yep. It's just about, do you have the depth on the defensive line? Guys like Jordan Scott were a unicorn when they came out here. They don't have many guys like that. And the fact that Jordan was able to stay healthy for all his time was huge, because had he gone out, there's not many other guys behind him that are going to be like that, right?
42 out of 47 starts right there, right?
It's unreal. It's unreal.
And he doesn't consider himself an Oregon legend. Just remind everybody out there, give Jordan Scott a shout out. Remind him how much the Ducks fans love and appreciate him, because without that, we aren't storming the field that last time in 2018.
Oh, 100%. I don't think without that you're on a storming the field last week. I think everything builds on itself. But my point being is that Jordan was a guy who didn't even take a recruiting visit out here. That's a guy who he loved the Ducks from Florida, never even had the recruit, didn't even have the Autzen Stadium experience, already was sold coming down here. And again, Troy Dye goes down as probably the greatest linebacker in Oregon history. He's got the numbers. He's in the conversation, right? Yeah. It's probably him. It's Graham. It's Alonzo. There's maybe some other ones that are mixed in there. Asher from my day. There's some other studs in there. Michael Clay from your day, right? Casey Matthews. There's some great ones. But I'm telling you, Troy Dye's got the numbers. Why? Because he had Jordan in front of him the whole time, keeping him clean. Hell yes, everybody knows a middle linebacker's best friend is the nose tackle. I mean, come on. So it's this idea that, you have to underestimate these guys sometimes. And I think the average person, they just don't understand what happens in the line of scrimmage. So much happens so quick. There's so many big bodies in there. There's not a lot of room to understand what's happening. And the average person doesn't understand it. And you take a guy like Amari Washington to just talk about that, a guy who's really come on strong this last year. Everybody was talking about him in fall camp, making big strides. But they had just brought in these two transfers that are going to play, who are big body dudes, right? And so the fact that you get an opportunity to go out there and get your time in and play, you're going to take advantage of that. But I just think you go back and look at it pad level. We don't have that really good shot from behind the line of scrimmage. But if you see it on the field, these guys get low. These guys pick these dudes up and they drive them.
And that's a beautiful thing that you're mentioning, pad level, because the only comparison talent-wise we have at defensive line right now, that the only two I can think of is Haloti and who is it? Devin Long.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right there. All right. Yeah. I got your throwback. And then the other two guys, obviously, Eric Armstead and then Forrest Buckner. And man, those guys did not have the leverage advantage at all.
No,
those
6'8", dude. Eric Armstead was a basketball player.
Well, not only that, like I know Coach Greatwood was trying to get him and even his brother on the offensive line before that, man. When I was getting recruited, Armand Armstead was
was an absolute stud for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, I remember the story when they recruited Depot. They never got to go out and see him play football. Aliotti went and saw him play basketball. And he said he goes in there and sees him go off of an inbound on the baseline, two-hand jam reverse. He's like, I think he can play football.
Hey, Greatwood came to one of my basketball games, and he said, we should probably take the scholarship back and have this guy walk on.
Well, guys, now that we got it pulled up here, I would love to hear your opinion. After hearing so much and saying so many good things about this Oregon defensive line, let's take a look really quick at what happened on Ohio State's biggest run play of the game. 43 seconds left in the first quarter. Right here, first, we'll get this thing started right here. I'll press play. We can watch it through. Talk us through a little bit of what you're seeing, and then, of course, we can pull it back and look at any individual piece of it.
All right. We got at least a 4-down line front, and the offensive line is getting penetration right there. But right down the field, is it which player are we looking at?
That was
right here.
Right here we go.
This is the one right here. Yeah. This is the one. And it's really downfield blocking from them. I mean, the guy, he locks up Stewart. And Jeremiah Smith, dude, the guy is big. Way bigger than you would imagine when he's on the field. My seats are like right there. My seats are like right in section 34. And you could see him when he's in the huddle. He was big. Look at him right there. I mean, when he goes up to congratulate the running back. But yeah, if you go back and pull that back again, let's see that. Let's see that blocking.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just covering everything right there.
Just walling hat on a hat.
Exactly. It's everything you want. One guy on one, and he gets the outside leverage.
And if you go back to the previous play, this is kind of an interesting one. The previous play that was just 9 yards, 10-yard play or whatever. They're doing the same thing. They're just walling up and hat on a hat, and then they're trying to just one-on-one hold off that tight end or a defensive end. So you see right here, Mateo gets locked up right here, and they go right inside him. Bang.
Yep.
And then that basically the same thing on the next play. And again, that's classic chip, right? That run goes for 15 yards, run it again.
That's your offensive line figuring out that rhythm. They're not running up to the second level. They're making sure everybody's checking that down man right there.
Perfect.
You're checking that guy. If there's an open hip, exactly. You take your time, you push. Yeah, that right tackle isn't doing shit, but I've been in that position many times, and we've been okay. So,
but that left tackle is doing work. I mean, Tatum can't get out of his grasp at all. And you don't need that much of a gap. Go back just a little bit. You don't need that big of a gap when you're running this play because you're running in between two guys anyway. And so it's a crafty play. All you need is that little crease right here, foot in the ground, bang. It happens quick.
Yep.
I see this happen all the time in high school football. because I watch high school football. I announced for my high school team that I coach at or teach at. This could be any other play. Every other play could be this breaker in high school football. You just got to keep running it.
Yep.
And that's why I think that Chip kind of gets into a rhythm where he's like, okay, that worked before for 15 yards. Let's do it again. This one just broke for what, 50, 52?
Yeah, exactly. And he would. And I mean, the playbook was always, at least convenient. You weren't confused going into a game plan. That's for sure. We had what was in the playbook that we knew was going to work against that team. We knew we were going to dial it up all day, and that's a huge part of the confidence you have. And again, when you're settling into a game on the road, you're not just running up to those linebackers. You're making sure we're securing all the down linemen and working up to that.
And the wide receivers. Play that again. Look at the top. Everybody's doing their part, man. Everybody's doing their part. These guys slide out. Oh, is it a pass? It is a pass. They get half the field to freeze. That's all it takes.
Yep.
All it takes is, one side has to do their side right. The other side has to do their side right. Football's the ultimate team game. That's why we freaking love this stuff, man.
Yep.
And he's a stud, dude.
Yep.
Deion Henderson is a freaking stud, man. That guy can go.
We could say that about a bunch of Ohio State's roster, but I just want to point out what studs our podcast are for pointing out that Chip definitely can't coach out offensive line false starts. As yours truly pointed out. So a lot of people were in my mentions on that going, yeah, Nick Cody called that out. There'd be some offensive line false starts in this game. Ryan, what did you think about that noise in Autzen Stadium? I know especially legit. Where you're at.
Yeah, it was legit, man. I mean, I've been in Autzen for so many years. I mean, I've done it with headphones, without headphones, with the kind that you have at the airport that you're working. I wear the ones that you plug into my ears. I have to, dude. I can't. I've already lost significant hearing being a Duck fan for all the years I've been to, and concert goer, everything else that's out there. I need to protect what I can get. And so I go with the headphones, the earplugs in. It was incredible. You could feel it in your chest. Like I still heard everything. It's not like you put those in your ears and it's like you can't hear it. No, you can hear everything. It's unreal when you do this, and then you go like this and you just pop one of them out. Like it attacks you, the sound. Like, and you know what? Good for them, because there was a lot of talk about how Autzen, there's no way Autzen can be loud with half this. It's just a mathematical equation. You can't have 60,000 people be as loud as 100,000. That's impossible. I was like, well, physics works as well, people. There's something to be said about a stadium that is an enclosed stadium. Most of all those stadiums that those people play in, they're all open stadiums. They're all the erector sets that have been built up over all the years. This one's not. This one's like a little tornado. And you just get that thing rolling. The crowd was awesome. They were awesome from start to finish. The student section was amazing. And what I liked was just little stuff like the crowd would, the Ohio State fans would say, OH, and then they'd say, IO, sucks. That sort of stuff. I heard that from the jump. So it wasn't like the crowd just got excited at the end when they had the possibility to win or on a big third down. This was sustained from literally like the jump, like in warm up.
From college game day.
From in the morning, 5 in the morning. These guys were already
five, dude. From what I heard, Sam, you got to clue us in. I heard we are beating the Cal fans out there right now. At least the Cal fans were like jumping a gate. We lined in an orderly fashion, from what I understand, 7 p.m. the night before.
Well, from what I heard, Oregon fans, they were out there as early as the afternoon before, kind of getting ready, getting the atmosphere together. And in credit to them, I will say they didn't go knock down the gates like the Cal fans did, because Oregon fans have been there before. We've had college game day. We know how to handle it.
Yes. And my son's roommates, my son has 2 roommates in the dorms, and my son's roommates both stayed over that whole night. They were over there at 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, getting their stuff together. My son's like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'm just going to stay here. Because he's been there too. He's done that. He's been to game day before. He knows the drill.
I really want to thank everybody that didn't smoke Pat McAfee out too bad. Like, I was really worried
That guy had to stop by a dispensary, though. That guy was fired up.
Oh, he had. Oh, dude, the dispensary would. I think he was bringing some of Mario's Cuban coffee with him, if you know what I'm talking about. But he was he. That energy, man. I was like, man, especially after like how much love he gave to UW. I was very glad to see him not only out there representing, but hucking the Fuskies. Yeah.
Okay.
Big shout out to everybody that made College Game Day. The energy it was, even though it felt like, damn, the production of it really tried to like downgrade it on every single level. Not just, Corso not being there or Herb Street leaving early, not bringing his dog, but just overall, it felt like they were trying to hinder what, like, based on previous like venues. Man, why are we spending an hour of the broadcast time on Herbie leaving and combine that with Coach Prime before he's about to get his ass beat?
I will say the having Coach Prime on did give that crowd an opportunity to get an overrated chant going that was among the top chants of the day from Oregon fans. Really quickly before we move on from it, though, there is one guy on this play from Oregon's perspective that I do want to shout out and give a lot of credit to, and it's a guy we've talked about on this podcast quite a bit. Brandon Johnson right here, lined up over on the far side in the slot, playing that position that he's had to play a lot this year. He's the one that gets all the way downfield from the other side of the play. You see him here. He recognizes. He takes off. The other safety right here misses the play. He's not able to get the proper angle on him. But it's Brandon who comes all the way over from the other side, doesn't stop once, is able to actually track down Henderson, one of the best running backs in college football, and keep him out of the end zone, even if just for a couple of more plays.
Absolutely. You got to love contain, man. You got to love that angle of attack. You got to love all these little things that you got to look at. I love putting your foot in the ground and knowing exactly where that guy's going to be. He's like, I'll meet you at the 2-yard line, buddy. In 3, 2, 1. And right here, dude, he is getting beat. He got on his horse a little bit. But look how fast. I mean, these guys are fast, dude. These not only the offensive guys, these defensive guys can really scoot. I mean, these linebackers are no joke. That Devin Jackson, fly, man.
If his pursuit angle was to the 2, he probably would have beaten him to the 6.
Very, very true.
But again, that's another, like your point. You can't match that speed. That's why back in my day, they had the 1s and 2s on defense every practice, every morning, doing all their pursuit angles because they had to know just how deep they had to go because we didn't on all levels. I'm not calling the defense out whatsoever. On all levels, we did not have the athleticism we see with this Oregon Ducks team we see today. And man, we're lucky to see it. And not just that, we have not mentioned it yet. The greatest attendance in Autzen of all time.
Yeah.
The fans showed up just like everybody had asked them to. Shout out to all of you. I'm so jealous I couldn't be there. Guys, just how much does that affect the team and how much you guys remember for the moments from those games where you could tell it was affecting Ohio State way more than the Ducks?
Well, Nick, I'll tell you this. And look, I would personally never take credit, but the side of the stadium I was on is where that string of pre-snap penalties took place. So I would just like to shout out Eastside Autzen for being able to pull off what was an incredible string of pre-snap penalties right there. But really, that's what Autzen Stadium brings, whether it is the single bowl, like Ren mentioned, where everything is just in on itself, whether it is that little bit of a roof that hangs over that visitor bench just enough to keep that sound bouncing up and down, or even the new giant big screen, which you got to assume is keeping in a lot of that sound as well. My gosh, Autzen was just an environment. It was the place to be in college football this past weekend.
Yeah, and the weather held out. Last time we had game day with UCLA, it was pouring in the rain. You were in a soaked toga, HOF. I mean,
and I loved watching. Shout out to Sports Chat 503. It is not a soaked yoga. Soaked yoga is what I do when I'm in hot yoga.
Soaked yoga, dude. Yeah, man. But yeah, dude, I think there's something to be said about the fact that it just everything worked out. You have the biggest game. I personally did not think they could get that many people in there. I thought that 60,000 mark with that ASU game was something specific to what they had built, or something that they had added on to something that they couldn't ever achieve that number again unless they rebuilt that. But I was wrong. There were people everywhere, every single aisle, every single place you went. The standing room only was 5 deep. I mean, it just everywhere around the bowl, there was people. And then, you do that picture, that 360 zoom in picture that they have, the megapixel picture or whatever. It is packed. There are people on the rooftop. I mean, it's everywhere around this thing. So it really was a unique day, man. It was something special.
Well, I think that something special is a phenomenal way to describe it. I was actually speaking with another friend of the podcast who I know we would love to have on sometimes. Eugene Radio's own Nick Rogers and I made up before the ball game. We were talking for a little while. And I asked him, I said, Nick, do you think that they're going to be hitting a record? And that was exactly his reaction. He said, I don't know, man. For those at Arizona State game, for some of those games back then, they brought in other stanchions. They brought in other bleachers. They had people stacked up on those things ready to go. I'm not sure if that's something that they'll be able to hit just purely numbers-wise. And then, lo and behold, that's exactly what was able to happen. I have no idea how many rows deep the standing room only were. I don't know how many people they shoved into the boxes. I have no idea how many they had rappelling down from the rooftop hanging by a harness. Somehow or another, they got 61 plus in there, and that was an absolutely incredible environment for a college football game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was the big one, man. Well, hey, my guys, I'm gonna have to get bouncing. 10:20. I hate to cut it off here, gentlemen. But for me, I got to bounce.
You're all good, man. We appreciate the time we got with you.
Normally, Nick, I could be on here for a couple hours. HOF and I, we've been known to get it in for a couple hours in the middle of the night, even maybe sometimes. You never know when not need to get into a Sports Chat 503 sesh.
The only reason we haven't invited you for earlier is because we knew it'd be so hard to cut you off. So this is
yeah. And if I didn't have a meeting tomorrow at 7, I would be all good.
We'll see you on in the next half hour when you decide you're ready.
Yeah. I'm gonna kick in my own. I didn't get enough of the Purdue breakdown. I didn't get into their third string running back.
Oh man. Well, when you're ready for it, we're right here for you.
I love it, and I love the film breakdown. I freaking love doing that. I used to do that, but then I would always they would always say I got some sort of copyright.
Well, and dude,
they would try to ding me on the copyright.
We understand you're making too much money with Sports
I
Chat.
don't even. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm rolling in the dough, Nick. You know me,
bro. You are rolling in the pencil box money. I've seen the donations.
I get the big Crayola. I get the 96 pack. I'm like a G in there.
If anybody wants to donate $99 to Once a Duck right now,
yeah,
I will donate a pencil box.
Yeah, I'm in there. Like, hey, what kind of Crayola you want, honey? Get whatever you want, baby. No, man, I really appreciate you guys, man. I'll come on here anytime, man. I love what you guys do. Sam it was great to see you at the tailgate. Much love, my guy. And then any other time, I'll try to shoot out. I'll try to see T-Rod's tailgate at that next one, although it's an early one. But HOF, you know how it is, man. It's all love here, bro.
I appreciate it, man. Just you saying HOF. Just keep helping me live the lie. I appreciate it.
It pumps me up, dude. And as long as Drew Davis doesn't come in the room, it's the only HOF.
Oh, yeah. The only guy that doesn't have anything better to do.
Yeah,
I'll be that guy for you.
All right, gentlemen, keep doing what you're doing, man. I really appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one.
We appreciate your time.
All right, adios.
Oh man, Nick, always a pleasure when we're able to get a friend of the podcast in the show. Again, thanks so much, Ring Winter, for being able to join us there at Sports Chat 503. Be sure you're following him. Heck, if you're following us, there's no doubt you're not following him. But just in case you aren't, be sure you do that. We've already been going for a while, Nick. I've just got one or two more of these for you to look at real quick before we get out of here and get on to our Purdue coverage. The first one here, well, I think this was a play that I think a lot of Oregon fans have been waiting for. We're excited for. Right here, we've got an Evan Stewart touchdown.
Yeah. Oh man. And just overall, just before you can let the play roll, but just Evan Stewart today. Like We didn't go over players of the game because we really don't have to. Evan Stewart, really, this was his coming out party, and definitely necessary with the ejection of Trayshawn Holding with that spitting call. Had that been a Zin spit to the face, I don't know if they call it, but I think if it's a regular spit, they don't allow that anymore. But on the field, dude, Evan Stewart just, you're the numbers guy, but I remember specifically it felt like this was not only his coming out party, but he embarrassed some of these Ohio State corners.
Well, he absolutely did. And you saw I let it play there because about one play before, 2 plays before his touchdown, he had that huge catch up the outside, a phenomenal play there. Right here, you'll see the touchdown. What I love about this is just the way he just goes to the spot, man. The way he just gets there, he gets after the ball. Dylan knows where he goes going. He knows where he's going. And just the type of connection you see right there is something that you love to be able to see out of your quarterback and your receiver. You were asking about those numbers before we watch it back again. I'll run you through them real quick. Think it was a coming out party? I don't know. Just tell me what you think about this. 7 receptions, 149 yards, and a touchdown. That's a coming out party on NBC in front of the nation in what is the most watched Big Ten game in, I believe, 16 years.
That, and you've got a cornerback right here on this play. Literally, as the ball is coming, go ahead and let it run. The literally face mask straight to your face mask, and you're still able to find the football right there. That's why you go and recruit one of the best transfers possible in the nation to add to an already great Oregon receiving corps, especially right now that you look at some of the injury right now at receiver. It just makes so much sense. This is the time right now you see guys, studs like Evan Stewart, step up, play to the top of their level, and play their best in the biggest games.
Well, I'll say you mentioned the injured players. I'll give a little bit of info that I saw this week that I liked a lot. Gary Bryant back out there at practice. He's been able to get out there a little bit. Love seeing that. He provides a level of speed and quickness that not a lot of guys outside of Tez Johnson, that receiving core, can really get up to. There's a lot of fast guys on there, but just the fast twitch muscle, the quickness, just to be able to break in an instant, him being able to bring that, especially in a game where, let's be completely and totally honest for a moment. I can't guarantee we'll see the same amount of Trayshawn Holding as normal, just due to some reasons that I think we all can find pretty understandable.
But so, hey, we can flesh that out right now.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
There's been a lot of conversation about that. Sam, what are your feelings?
Well, I'll tell you what. My first reaction was the moment it happened, the moment they announced the play. I just turned to my good buddy Leland, who I'm at almost every Oregon game with. I just turned to him and go, man, that dude's going to be running a lot this week. That man is running so much this week. Just, I don't know if he's running, I don't know if he's doing bear crawls. That he's focused on conditioning this week. Let's just say that much. It's going to be a real big conditioning week for Trayshawn Holding. That being said, credit to him. The apology came out the next day. Full disclosure, full honesty, it absolutely seemed like an apology that was run through the machine that is University of Oregon PR. But I will say, on the field after the game, I did have an experience I was not expecting, which was running into Trayshawn Holding. I ran into him on the sideline immediately after the game. And what I will say is I caught him.
Wait. Did he give you that Hawk Tua?
I did not get a Duck Tua, unfortunately. That was not a part of it. I didn't get to be a part of whatever class action lawsuit Ohio State's filing right now. But what I will tell you is that he was having a conversation with somebody else on the sideline. He did show showed legitimate remorse. He obviously was disappointed in himself. Obviously was disappointed with his conduct. He said the same thing. I said something along the lines of, "Hey man, the internet's going to be what it is. Just handle you the way you need. You need to." He was very receptive, nodding his head, absolutely yes, doing all the things you're supposed to do. Is the University of Oregon going to give you the PR dream that everyone would hope for? Of course they are. It's the University of Oregon. Of course. The PR school is one of the best in the nation.
Nowadays with NIL, again, these guys have the freedom to have agents too. So
exactly
that's where my first thoughts went.
They have agents. They have PR teams. They have Chat GPT if they really want to. There's plenty of options out there.
There you go.
For whoever needs to use it. But all of that being said, and it's something that I was curious to hear your perspective on, because you're more aware of, let's just say, the Chip Kelly kind of markers to hit before returning, if you will. I don't know if that's something that Dan Lanning necessarily has in place the same way, but I wouldn't be at all shocked if it's something where a guy like Trayshawn has some extra requirements now in terms of outreach, in terms of availability. He's definitely somebody that I could see in the offseason having to dig some holes to plant some trees around the Eugene area and being a part of those teams or whatever. But I would love to hear from your perspective. How would you approach that situation? What are your goals? What are your markers that a player has to be able to hit in those situations?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I think everybody responds to it differently. So I think that creates an additional scenario for coach right there. So first and foremost, if you believe you can create a discipline scenario in terms of just whether that's conditioning or restriction from games, you go with that first and foremost. If the player doesn't go with that, that's where you need to, reassess things. But obviously it seems Trayshawn understands the mistake he made. And the other part that is difficult to assess is just spitting in general. To some people, it is equated with physical assault. To others, especially on the football field, it's like, man, I can't tell you the amount of times, intentionally or not, I just spit just to get it out. But never on another person, never in their face. But I did have multiple opposing players vomiting right near my hand on the field in Tennessee, in Neyland Stadium. So I feel like, man, those guys should have been penalized equally too, kick their asses out of the game. But again, that's just because I'm repulsed by that kind of thing. And I think a lot of the general audience is his reply, whether if it is generally written by him or not, if he believes that and he really is remorseful for it, well, I hope he is able to go past the conditioning test that Coach Lanning, I am sure, is going to put out. But seeing him this week, I don't necessarily expect, but you never know. And that's in between. That's really a personal agreement between the coaching staff and the team. And if a player came out there and was really I'll do whatever, I mean, back in the day, the ultimate punishment for guys was the Autzen Stadium X, and that, well, up downs always. But that was, you cross the highest points of Autzen Stadium. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Right up there at the highest point of the student section, go all the way across and go all the way up to the 80s, the 70, cross it, cross back down, go back over, cross, and you do a Stadium X, the entire length of Autzen Stadium, and that hill right there to cross back up at the student section at the end, dude, that hill feels so much worse the second time when you're going back up there. So just a thought to all future Oregon players, before you go and mess up, man, I've made that mistake. You don't want one of those. And there's people I've known that had to do one or two of those after practice every day till they got back on the team. And if Trayshawn is able to do that to the coach's sufficiency, man, that's between them and the coaches. And if it never happens again, it's not a problem. But again, that's one of those coachable moments. Hopefully everybody on the team learns from it, not just Trayshawn.
Well, Nick, now that we've covered the thing that I think we all knew we'd have to get to eventually, let's get back to some more plays here.
Let's duck to it.
This right here, I think, one that might have been a favorite for Oregon fans throughout the game. This one, and then the next one we're going to do as well. This right here, you've got a Tez Johnson touchdown. We all saw from the Ducks versus them this week, Dan Lanning basically called a shot right here. He said, hey, Tez, go get me one, or something along those lines. And boy, oh boy, did Tez Johnson do that. Whoever had that Tez for Prez sign, I mean, this is the best campaign video you could possibly have right here.
Well, and another great line from Dan Lanning that we'll be hearing again right there, it's played on the grass. It's going to be jab, jab, and haymaker, man. This is your haymaker shot right here. He was talking about Oregon had taken his jabs. Dylan Gabriel had been efficient, but right here, right now, you get the protection right there. Your quarterback feels comfortable in the pocket. You release it right there to one of your best receivers. Look at that separation right there between a number 2 and number 3 matchup. You get that kind of separation. That's a touchdown. Now, right here, you look at all the defensive backs for Ohio State are lined up where? Inside the first down marker. They are counting on getting the stop right here. But here's the problem. Oregon right now isn't just thinking about the first down. They are thinking about the end zone and immediately let the play run. Oregon's ready. That pass. Oh, man, that pass protection. You get a little rise in the middle, but you're able to run it around. Otherwise, they're not bringing anybody from Dylan Gabriel's backside. You've got no pressure there. It makes it a very easy throw. And, man, Autzen Stadium and the duck in the corner right there, you know he was stoked. So I love it. You see right here, the referee is basically running on the hash, and everybody else is matched up. They're matched up right over there, trying to match up with our trips to the open field side. And then, man, the doubles inside. You just, if you don't have a safety deep, and it's like we talked about, they have such athletes at the safety position in Ohio State that they can go and fit up in the run at any time, but immediately in these situations, they're not able to help your corners out on the outside.
Two things I want to mention from this play that really stick out to me. First and foremost, and when we run through it, I'll point it out again, but Tez is willing to get physical on this one. He's willing to get after it with the defensive back a little bit. That helps create some of the separation, not in a way that would cause a penalty by any means. He's staying to his space, if you will. He's not necessarily going out of his way to cause anything, but he's absolutely willing to do what it takes to be able to get open right here. Before we even look at that, something I love about this play is this is a set, and this is a play that Oregon's run a lot of times this season. The only difference is they weren't taking the deep shot on it. This was a play where a lot of the time you would see Tez come here underneath. You see, as he does on this play, Ferguson come here underneath. And throughout the season, maybe it'd be a guy like Holton who'd be lined up right here, who would take it all the way to the outside, drag a defender with him, and you'd be able to get something underneath right here. In this game, we saw so many situations where Oregon had set the table throughout the year leading up to this, and they were able to take advantage. Right here, you see them come off the line. These two guys immediately pull over. Tez here, he's saying, you know what? No, this is my space. I have a right to it. I'm running right through it. He's able to get the separation, make the play, and then, of course, hold on to the ball, get it out across that goal line before being brought down in the end zone. The Ducks celebrating. The cheerleaders are celebrating. The boys with their chest painted are celebrating. This was a huge play in Autzen. This was a real tone setter.
And the Duck, in his first year, is the best damn Big Ten referee we have seen so far.
Phenomenal call right there. Look at that. He had the touchdown before anybody else. He knew exactly what was coming. Credit to our guy, the Duck, right there, making that one happen.
Such an athlete, man.
Such an athlete. I mean, look at you don't do that many push-ups on a weekly basis and don't gain a little bit of something from it.
What you can't see from the film is he was just done crowd surfing right there. And he knew immediately when the play was called. Just got down on the field right there to call it. We're good. Touchdown.
Nick, second to last thing we're going to look at for this game. Second to last one. This is maybe the loudest Autzen got all night, at least before the final. I don't want to say buzzer. It's not a basketball game. Before the clock hit triple zeros right here. And I think we know what's coming right now.
And just an introduction, man. Man. Overall, I wasn't able to watch. I was able to catch everything in the second half, or in the first half live. The second half, again, I was doing a comedy show, texting back with you multiple times until we finally got the win. But one of my favorite things this season so far is I really enjoy the Big Ten in 60-minute recaps way better than the Pac-12 ones. I don't know if it's the better commercial system or not, but I was watching it not only when I got home that night, but just last night. I was watching it again just to double check, just make sure I didn't miss anything. I was like, man, it feels damn good to be in the Big Ten. And now not to have Comcast being stingy about it either.
Here's something I want to point out right here, and I love it's maybe the thing I love the most about this play. If there was ever a time to pull out this kind of a beautiful read option, my God, it's against a Chip Kelly coach team right here. What do you think Chip was thinking right in the box right there? The minute his lineman absolutely crashes down and Dylan just starts taking off.
Bro, I mean, immediately right here, why is he thinking, why do we only have one safety on the hash? In this situation, as an offensive lineman, we were looking at this as beauty, man. We know everybody right now is manned up. You've got that one guy right there. Yeah, as soon as they diagnose it as a run play, they're immediately susceptible to whoever's playing their option. If you don't play your rules, guess what? The quarterback is going to make you guess. And JTT, come on up. You are the guy that gets a guess tonight. We used to call this, he's a true defensive end, but we used to call it specifically, depending on what defensive lineman we would be trying to basically isolate, run the option off of there. So whether it was JTT lining up here or if you're more in a nose, I still feel like this is still the play right here to take a very tremendously talented player and use his athleticism against him.
Well, and that's exactly what happens. You see, he's got phenomenal get off right here, gets after it. To be fair, Dylan hadn't kept one all game. He was thinking, oh man, it's going to be another opportunity to stop Oregon in the backfield. They've done
Especially Jordan James. Everybody's thinking, we got to stop Jordan James right now.
When number 20 gets going, he is hard to stop. That's why he's so excited to be able to get him in the backfield right here. And credit to Dylan Gabriel, absolutely following in the footsteps of his idols, Marcus Mariota, and I think maybe the guy who perfected this play better than anybody else, who also happened to wear the number 8, Jeremiah Masoli. Just this absolute beautiful ability. Hide the ball right there. Look how well he keeps that on the back hip too. He pulls it back right there. Nobody quite knows where the ball is until he is gone. Yeah, here, immediately you got a one-on-one, and that's going to be problems.
It's exactly, you can see the yardage right there, but we got to there's been a lot of Ducks that have mastered the pull-out yet method over the years. Got to give a shout out to Nate Costa.
Nate Costa as well, another one of the guys who absolutely had that hammered down. I mean, if we want to go through the list, Lord knows Dennis Dixon nailed it more than a few times. You know what? You know who else? You know who maybe didn't nail it, but had my favorite unique version of it? Brian Bennett, when he didn't know if he wanted to keep it or not, but he did. He just said, Colt, we'll take this thing together. Why not? That was a fun night against Arizona, if I remember that.
That doesn't fall under pull-out method, but we'll allow it.
Little indecision still led to a score. Also, to his credit, I think he was trying to. I just think Big Colt wasn't going to let him.
Fair. Yeah. And honestly, you put me in that situation in the backfield, I'm not going to put it in the quarterback's hands either. But getting back to the game, man, especially running right through here, just the way, especially taking me back to my favorite games as an Oregon player, you knew as an offensive lineman, if you just trusted your assignment, it didn't matter if it was the running back or the quarterback. Somebody was going to get to the end zone. That's the way Chip used to dial it up. That's the way our coaching staff dialed it up right here. And, man, Dylan Gabriel, just with the confidence to not just, go down right there. Go ahead and take it all the way to the end zone, you fella. I was going to say young fella, but I'm like, oh, man, this guy's going to break all Bo Nix records if we can keep him healthy.
Well, and credit right here to Terrence Ferguson keeping this block downfield. Eventually, the defensive back's able to get off it, but it's too late by the time he does. We mentioned Ferguson is a guy who's going to be playing on Sundays. Plays like this are a big reason why. Got him driven back all the way to the 15, spun him around. By the time he's looking back at Gabriel, he's far out of position. Dylan's able to take that into the end zone.
And that's 2 weeks in a row. He's responsible right there for getting Dylan from the red zone to the end zone.
Absolutely, it is. And I got to tell you, Nick, that was such a moment inside of Autzen Stadium. It was incredibly loud, incredibly raucous at that moment. And I got to say, that was just such a moment of relief for everybody. Another third down situation, another short yardage situation. Oregon had almost been better in the long yardage situations because we kept on going, Gabriel, put it over the top. He'll throw it over past somebody and they'll pick up a big play right there. Not that one. He ran it himself. He took care of business. Finally, our last play. This one comes after, I guess what we can call the most controversial moment in college football this season so far. Before we take a look at this final 3rd and 20 play, tell me what your reaction was to that massive, let's just be honest and call it what it was, a genius call to find a brilliant loophole in the rules, a loophole that I will say, I'll be honest, I know a lot of Duck fans are feeling a way about it. I think that the point of anybody, of any person, almost any person in any situation, finding loopholes is always something you want to do, and it's up to governing bodies to also close those loopholes. That's the give and take of it. You had to imagine. I thought it'd be, hey, after the season, they're probably going to change that rule. Did I expect it to be 3 days later? Not necessarily. That was a fast turnaround. But I'll tell you, the moment it happened, you had to go, oh, they're going to – the first thought was they're changing that rule. They're going to change that rule because the point of a penalty should never be to benefit the team that created a penalty. That's just not how the game works. Am I going to say you're cheating by doing it? No, you found a loophole. It's exactly what you're supposed to do. But you also then can't be mad at the governing body for saying, oh, we got to close the loophole now.
All right. Well, I've heard a lot of sides on this, and they did change the rule regardless. Dan Lanning will be sure to let his team know. But regardless, great coaching to understand the rule and apply it in a necessary thing here. When you've got 3rd and long, and the game is on the line, dude, absolutely great idea. And running him on like at the last second over there, loved it. But overall, I mean, the rule getting changed is all about attention, guys. It's only because this was a 10 billion viewer game. This was one of the highest rated games of all time, 2 versus 3. And then you've got the biggest whiners in the Ohio State University that is going to definitely, if they're not going to fire Ryan Day right here and now, they're going to have to make something change. So I see them changing the rule. It makes a lot of sense from that perspective. But overall, man, it made me laugh in perspective because it reminded me, and what it first reminded me before I even looked into it was Todd Graham, Arizona State era. And you know what? You look back and what do you know? Dan Lanning and Kenny Dillingham kind of met back there in those Arizona State days. And I reached out to some contacts and I realized the Coach Bray at Oregon State, his dad was an Arizona State coach around that time. So somebody kind of tipped me off that there was a series of defensive coaches here that may have been responsible for spending this much time looking at the rule book and knowing these rules in these situations. And man, much praise to them. But it just made me laugh to think about because it was very, very Arizona State in my thoughts. Now, with the rule being changed, again, great. Good for Ohio State. If we get to meet up again, I hope you don't get that excuse. That's the greatest thing I can say about the rule change. Otherwise, I think in most situations, especially if it happens against Oregon versus Ohio State, we flip it. This is going to be one of those rules that they wait to review in the offseason and nothing happens because this is the Ohio State. This is why we get midweek recall of a rule. But again, regardless, good on Dan Lanning. It just shows you he is about his word. When he talks about his coaching staff and him always trying to improve and take any advantage he can, this is just an example, and he's living by his word. I love that from a defensive head coach.
Well, then right here, let's look at that last play right here. Let's look a little bit because I think there's a couple of interesting things here. Number one, obviously terrific coverage downfield because if there wasn't, he just would have gotten rid of the ball and thrown it out immediately. Number two, I think it's a really phenomenal job here at the defensive line to keep him uncomfortable, force him up into that pocket, put him in that running mindset. You had to think he was trying just to get down quick enough to get the timeout called. It wasn't able to happen. But just tell us what you were able to see here.
Yeah, definitely. That, and you have, especially here, 4 down men rushing. You've got some games up front, right on the right side. You're running a TE. You're trying to make sure you can contain. But unfortunately, in this situation, there's just the time is not on your side. So, yeah, take it back a couple seconds. Ideally, you'd like the inside tackle, if you could see right there to the field side. He is going to be running the pressure to try and set up that left tackle. We already know is a backup because Ohio State's left tackle is injured. He's trying to set up the game here. So hopefully he can push back or hopefully he can get around after the defensive end has enough pushback. And then right there on the interior, all we have to do is just step up to the left. But great quarterback opportunity right here. And also, considering the last play, the quarterback didn't necessarily know that the clock was going to be running as soon as they reset the down. So you've got your quarterback running here. He knows, and you look up right here, and as our former guest, Ryan explained, his son, Darby, got a perfect photo right there before Howard is looking up going, oh, man, I thought I had time to take a good slide, take the yardage here, but no. And even then in that situation, as long as you're not giving up the touchdown and even here, or if you're not giving up 10, I think about 7 yards, I think you're good right here because, Ohio State does have the one timeout, but this is not great consideration for your field goal kicker. So especially that red line right there, that's the line of scrimmage. If, you can just keep it, I would say 10 yards from there. You've done your job on this play, but ultimately keeping it inside and make your quarterback run just tells you how everybody downfield has made their assignment, has held onto their assignment just enough. The quarterback felt that his best option was to run.
Well, and something that I think has been pointed out, especially by Ohio State fans in this ball game, is that when he does go down, there is about a half a second left on there. But, and this is important to say, there is never once in the history of football been a moment where the instant a guy goes down, a timeout is called and placed. That's something that just based off human ability and nature alone, it's going to take half a second to a second to get done anyways.
Well, in a great comparison Ryan Winter made was that Rose Bowl game is literally you thought you had the time to spike the ball, but no, you at least need 2 seconds to take a snap and spike the ball. And if you the referees are right there watching the clock, they have it right there. Everybody knows. The problem is your reaction as a player in this scenario, especially as quarterback, which I guess we'll never see again with the rule change, is that apparently right here you thought you had 4 more seconds left. And that's really the difference in this football game. And congrats to Dan Lanning. And I hope that we see a scenario like this again if we match up with Ohio State again, because I feel damn confident in our coaches to be able to figure out and coach this scenario better than the opposition based on this series right here.
Well, Nick, I'll tell you, watching it live, when he went down, I wasn't sure whether they got the time or what was going to happen. Nobody really knew for a second. It was the Oregon players reacting that made us go, oh my God, it's over. It's over. And so right here, this is maybe my favorite moment in the game. You get to see all of these Oregon players celebrating. You see Jabbar, you see Winston right here, you see Jackson. They look up. Yep, Jabbar's immediately, it's over. It's over. The celebration begins. And Eugene absolutely goes nuts. It becomes an incredible field storm. One of the best we've seen. Dan Lanning going nuts.
No. The best we've seen.
The best we've seen. You're right. The very best we've seen. Whether it's Dan Lanning getting in a shoving match, a friendly shoving match, but a shoving match with LeGarrette Blount, whether it's him being absolutely mobbed by the Bussin' with the Boys guys, all of it was just such an exciting, fascinating moment. And I'm very, very glad it was something that Oregon fans got to be a part of and got to experience.
From the moment he popped his in walking down the tunnel, it was game over for Ohio State. All right, all jokes aside, all fun aside, what a great game. I am so jealous of everybody that got to be there. The only things I can compare it to in my lifetime are, every game I played there. And then the only game I can compare as a fan, obviously not post-career, but pre-career, my obviously the only thing that came decibel level was the game that was my official visit 1 year after my dad's passing, the USC game in 2007. And there's just nothing that will really compare to that for me. But this is about as close as you can get, especially because we only got to that decibel level after that Matthew Harper interception. And it seems like you guys were hitting that decibel level 90% of the game. What the hell were you guys on?
Pure adrenaline, Nick. It was a pure adrenaline deal. And I got to tell you, you know who deserves a lot of credit for, and I'll give it, Autzen's been incredible this year. The Michigan State game was popping. The Boise State game was popping. It was a lot of excitement in a lot of places. And someone who I don't think a lot of people deserves some credit. I'm giving credit to Cameron Ward. Cam Ward deserves credit because his comments early this season brought just rejuvenated some energy. When he went on there and said, yeah, playing at Florida is no big deal. I played at Oregon, where they're not just loud when the play's happening. They're loud when you're in the huddle. I think that was kind of a light bulb moment for a lot of people to went, oh yeah, we are Oregon. We are loud when they're in the huddle. That is the thing that we do. And Oregon has lived up to it every moment since those comments were made. The team's been phenomenal. And just to put a bow on it, phenomenal game, phenomenal field rush, amazing energy. I don't think I've ever given out so many high fives in about an hour time span before in my life. Literally, the time runs out in that game. I'm turning around, hugging people I don't know, hugging people who just bought these tickets for this game and are Oregon fans. I went up 2 rows behind us, high-fiving and hugging people. At one point, my feet weren't on the ground. My feet weren't on the ground. I was being lifted up by somebody while high-fiving 2 other people, and it was all incredibly worth it.
Well, and here's the other thing. There is not only the level of energy we brought and the attendance record, but that balance. And there were years, especially my years, and I know for those attendance records that we talked about last week, the Arizona State game and the Washington Huskies game in 2010. Yeah, I got to say 2011, 2010. Those are the 2 ones that were like right there before it. And I got to tell you, the energy from Autzen was not all behind the Ducks the same way it was. And especially that mattered so much because there were a lot of season ticket holders, regardless of if you guys were OG season ticket holders or the imposters, but there were a lot of those that were sold out to the Ohio State fans. And you know what? At the end of the day, like I kept telling a lot of people, it doesn't matter. Those people won't be allowed in the student section. And I know from people like my man Sam Schmidt over here that they don't fuck around up there. They don't let you, and you've seen the clips. There's that one Ohio State fan that, hey, he comes over, I'm gonna talk to the student section. They said, no, get your ass out of here. And they didn't even need the pit crew to escort him out here. But I know from the OG pit crew, they've educated these fans well over decades now, that I knew at least that corner of the stadium, once the students are in school, dude, we're good. Beyond that, I know all the fans that paid to get a seat here in Autzen, they were all going to be screaming as much as all of you guys that lost your voices. I'm so jealous because I just lost my voice screaming at Husky fans, reminding them how it is to be undefeated in the Big Ten.
Undefeated in the Big Ten is something only a few teams can say right now. Those teams, of course, being Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana as of right now. The Ducks, they've got to travel to the state of Indiana coming up. They're not going to be playing the Hoosiers. They're going to be playing the Boilermakers in a building. I know that teams you played on, they went to that stadium before. You were a part of a home and home against Purdue. We've already been going, Nick. Believe it or not, we're on an hour and 48 right now. This is record time for a Once a Duck episode, and I'm all about it. Before we get out, we've got to talk a little bit about this Purdue game. So break down some of your memories from playing the Boilermakers.
Well, I mean, it was my first game reps in Autzen Stadium or as a Duck. As you guys might know, that first 2009 game against Boise State, whether you're listening to this podcast or not, we didn't get a lot of offensive plays in that game. So me being the kind of the 6th, 7th man on offense, that was the offensive line at that time in our rotation. It was not necessarily great for me to get in there, but I got in there. like I talked about earlier in the show, my very first play, I still remember I'm at right guard against Purdue. And I believe Mike Neal and oh my goodness, I'm going to forget, Washington Redskins at the time, Ryan Kerrigan were both on the Purdue team. And I still remember the very first play. I ran straight to where the middle linebacker was supposed to be on a third down, whiffed. We got stuffed in the backfield. Ah, still could. I still remember getting chewed down in that practice. The very next play, I remember I was specifically trying to cut Mike Neal, and I was just bear crawling at this guy's knees, just thinking, please don't get me chewed out in the next play of practice. So Purdue, I still remember that 2009 game was a lot different than it will be this year. But on the road the year before, I remember as a redshirt even more that's where Justin Roper got hurt. We were playing back and forth. It was really humid. September 13th game, or third or fourth week of September. And dude, as soon as Roper got hurt, we didn't really have a lot of options at quarterback. So our offensive game plan, as you can very easily see now, was inside zone read option with Chris Harper at quarterback and LeGarrette Blount in running back. And if LeGarrette wasn't taken in, Chris Harper was running as well, because there was no chances of Chris Harper throwing it beyond 15 yards because he had hurt his shoulder in that fall camp.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I think going back and watching that game earlier this week, just to get a feel for the history of these matchups. Somebody
You nerd. Nerd.
Absolutely. Why else would I be doing this? Why else would I be doing this on a Wednesday night, Nick? I got to tell you, the guy who I think deserves so much credit for turning that game around, Jarius Byrd on a punt return, absolutely changed the momentum of that one.
You saw that on social media.
I'll tell you what, I watched that game 2 days ago and went, I got to post some of the highlights from that. And just as I was about to, I went, the Big Ten beat me to it. God dang it.
They did. Man, we Autzen really needs to get on top of that, Sam.
You would think so. You would think so, wouldn't you?
Hey, man. But, dude, that was we already knew Jarius's dad was an NFL coach. We knew he was a stud. But especially on the road right there, I remember that was one of those moments we knew that Oregon wasn't just an offensive team. Coming off that 2007 season, you really thought, man, if Oregon just had the quarterback, but really you realized, man, the D-Boys coming out season was that 2008 season. For those that don't recall or remember, the D-Boys, Jarius was the head of that.
Well, and I'll tell you what, in those 2 years worth of games, Oregon had 2 interceptions in both of those games, 2008, 2009. The 2008 game, couple of NFL stars making plays there for Oregon. You had Jarius Byrd and you had TJ Ward, each getting interceptions in that game. The next year, another NFL stud made a big play. You had Walter Thurman coming down with a pick 6 in that game. Also, Casey Matthews, he got a pick in that one as well. Before we really get into what our breakdown and predictions are going to be, Nick, since we already have the share the screen up, since it's already here, I may as well ask you, what are you thinking about these this week?
Man, here's the one thing. I love them, except as you guys know, I always don't like the white pants. I would go, especially with the yellow hamlets, go with the pea pants. Let your big man, especially if your big man is your model this week, go ahead and let him go in the pea pants. Don't let him be showing out there. Well, I know they'll be hydrated enough. None of the fans will know. It'll just look like sweat. But I know back in my day, I'd prefer the matching yellow pants just to let it fly. Green pants, black pants, anything but the white pants, especially because, I wasn't packing a whole lot there besides the pee in that area. So otherwise, these guys, they look good. They're going to look great. They're athletes. I wasn't one of these. Yeah, see, right there. You get them in a 3-point stance. You can't see the dong hanging. We're good. But
late night Once a Duck, folks. Once a Duck after dark.
Hey, Once a Duck after dong. That's but hey, and again, if you could ever find a picture of me in that near athletic stance, I could make the all white look good too. But you're not gonna find it. You're just not going to find it. That's why we recruit real athletes here at Oregon now.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am a big fan of the studded dunks, if you will. Big fan of that look. Obviously, our guy Button doing some great work putting those together. I got to say, the gold pants, that would have already been a uniform rerun from UCLA. We would have been doing that twice in 2 road games. You can't be doing that. Green pants, I wouldn't have been mad at all. Go with a little classic 90s look. But you have to imagine that's a look that's probably being saved for something big down the road at some point or another. I will say, though, I think the white on white with the gold helmet, it looks very good in the context of the uniform matchup. Purdue going with the all black, the new specialty all black. Love the script Purdue right there in black on that helmet with the gold face mask. These teams are going to contrast each other very well in terms of the looks as well as in terms of what they're doing on the field. Nick, we've only got a few minutes left here.
I'm not. I gotta stop you there.
Go ahead, jump in.
That's why you're here. I'm glad you're able to point it out, man. And back in the day, I definitely could have used you to remind me when to pack an extra girdle on the road when we were getting the white pants that you were so for them. So appreciate you backing up the white pants over the pea pants. But sometimes we don't have to keep it new every single time. Stick with what works sometimes. The pea pants work, but all right, we got to wear the white pants sometimes. Besides that, that other home game that we had a different plan for. So
Nick, with only a few minutes left here, let's kind of go over some of our quick keys for this Purdue game before we get into our predictions. One thing that's interesting, we're going to be seeing the freshman quarterback for Purdue. Brown is going to be playing in this game for them. So far in the season, 25 of 37, 365 yards in his limited action. And I think it's the reason why he's getting that start for Purdue. He's got 3 touchdowns, but he's got 0 interceptions, as opposed to the guy who'd been starting before. He had 7 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions so far throughout the season. Purdue, they're going with the efficiency here. They're going with the young cat. And, of course, they've got a couple of talented running backs. Maccabee, he's got 2 touchdowns this year on 464 yards. Love the third. He's got 226 yards and 2 touchdowns as well.
Well, and whenever, again, you're going into Purdue, you're facing the Boilermakers, okay? They've adopted this reputation. The last time they had a number 2 team in there, I believe it was 2018 Ohio State. I know Sam's usually the number guys. I don't need him to check me on this, but here's what you need to know about Purdue. It's a tough place to play regardless. At least I am happy we're playing an evening game on a Friday and our second Friday in 3 weeks. So we already know how we have to adjust schedules to match up with this. Now, the problem is you're coming off the high of that Ohio State game. How do you ground yourself? How much do you trust your athletes and your coaches to make sure that every moment of preparation that you have to get out of this shortened week matches the exact same preparation you brought for every single week before this? And you know what? You had that against Michigan State. Hopefully, that was a trial run. But this is truly Oregon's first road test. Being on the West Coast, going to UCLA or going up to Oregon State and Corvallis, those aren't true road tests. This is going to be the first time you understand as a team what it's like to go out there a day early, adjust to a new time zone, and utilize that time in the hotel room together. And that's not something that everybody really thinks about. But when you have great team chemistry and a team that is really focused on the moment at hand instead of the celebrating the moment the week before, that's when we have a great team. And that's the only way we're going to know this week. So again, everybody wants to play Boilermaker, but I believe this is a great opportunity for Oregon to really bond and show everybody in the nation that this just wasn't a gimmick win, that Oregon has made a big statement in the Big Ten. We're coming here and we're taking names.
Well, I think taking names is going to be a good way to put it. I would love to see Oregon be able to come out and perform that way. Quickly, I love to talk about numbers, so here's a fun number for you. Purdue, they have the most wins against AP top 2 teams while being unranked since the beginning of the polling era. For any team, it's going to be impressive to get 1, 2, 3 of those. Polling error started in 1936, and if you're an unranked that beat a top 2, you're lucky if you got 2, 3, even 4 of those. Purdue's done it 9 times. 9 times in that many years. It might not seem like that's crazy. That is leagues above where anybody else is. The Spoilermakers, it is a very, very real thing. That being said, I trust this Oregon team. I trust their ability to come out, be able to put those distractions to the side, to be able to play Oregon versus Oregon football. Nick, before we get out of here, let's go over predictions. What do you got happening in this one? And I will say, I've got my answer written down, believe it or not.
Man, I love it. The funny thing is, back in the day, back in the old 2006 era, when I was first getting a lot of recruiting letters and stuff, Purdue was the first Big Ten team to offer me at the time. And I still remember talking to some of their coaches, and a lot of their pitch was to get out there and see the Indy 500. And they weren't trying to pitch me on any of their players or Drew Brees. It was just get out there to Indy. And to me, right now, this is an opportunity for Oregon to put a big duck foot stamp right there in the Midwest. And we need to take every advantage of this opportunity, because the last time we've been out there, and as we talked about early in this podcast, when I played against them, they were close games. This is our opportunity right here to make a statement and say, it wasn't just that we were playing great against Ohio State. We will play great against anybody, and we will take it on the road truly for the first time. I believe that we come away with a 35-13 win for the Ducks over Purdue and the Boilermakers. Andrew, I cannot hear your microphone.
Well, Nick, I was saying, as we've said before, I'm glad that I wrote this one down, because we're eerily close, as we tend to be from time to time. I've got this one finishing. Let me share it with the screen right here really quick so you can see it. 41-16, Oregon. That's the way I see this one turning out. I really do think in the first half it might be a little closer to not. Coming off a short week, playing after such an emotional win against Ohio State, your first trip, multiple time zones of the season. I think it's going to be a very important game, because it's going to teach us exactly how Oregon is going to show up in those type of games when they have huge ones against Michigan and Wisconsin later this season. I could see it going into halftime, maybe even somewhere around 17-6, 17-10, something like that. But then the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, Oregon puts their foot on the gas. And I do believe this is the game where, for the first time in 2024, or I should say the 2024 season, we see Oregon eclipse that 40-point marker.
And if not, I honestly will feel probably confident that the reason behind it is we feel very confident in our defense. And we have yet to see. But again, this is one of those scenarios I've been explaining to Duck fans, especially people that were around in my era. Guys, you don't have to win every football game by a wide margin. As long as you win every single one of them, you're going to be all right. And I feel very, very strong in this coaching staff and the strategy we built to not only score as what's necessary, but to put our foot down on the throat of the opposing offense. And I think we saw that right there at the end of the Ohio State game. Man, without that penalty, literally without you can hear from the Ohio State fan base right now the amount of excuses out there. And I still look back feeling Oregon could have played a way better game. And I don't know if I look at Ohio State and say a lot of the same thing, regardless if you take away injury.
Well, you know what, Nick? That will be left to be seen. Hopefully, that's a matchup we can see again at some point this season. I know you're looking forward to Penn State, but the college football world wants that Oregon-Ohio State matchup. Folks, if somehow you made it through all 2 hours of this, thank you so much. Congratulations. Yeah. This has been a marathon of an episode. We have so many people to thank for having this happen. Of course, thank you so much, Sport Chat 503, for being able to come through.
Yeah.
Thanks, here Ryan, for as much of the episode as he was. Awesome job by Ryan. We really appreciate him. Anytime he's able to share some time with us. As always, follow, do all that stuff. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Make sure that you're checked out at Once a Duck on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, now X. We're doing as much as we can to post more and more regularly on there. And you know what? We hope to be able to bring on some more former Ducks. We've got some exciting ones lined up for the season as it progresses. As always, follow him at Nick R. Cody to see whatever he's got going on, Oregon football and much more. A lot going on over on that page. And if you're so inclined, follow me at Samuel101TS. If you're in the mood for 99% Oregon football talk and then, 1% random BS throughout the day. Nick, whatever you got else to tell him, make sure you let him know.
Hey, I hope to see plenty of Ducks in the Seattle area at GameWorks this Friday. And that'll be a lot of fun. Keeps us very open this Saturday, potentially, for another live stream and reaction to this game. But hey, you guys let us know who you want, again, in future episodes. If you want to join us in a future live stream, again, let us know. We got Ryan in here. We got a lot of potential Ducks. I know getting T-Rod out here would be great. And there's a bunch of other potential, not just former Duck players, but the best of the best Duck fans. We'd love to have you guys on because, as always, once a Duck, always a Duck. We appreciate all you guys supporting us, following us, and sharing with your friends. Can't wait to see you guys and see our Ducks play on Friday. Go Ducks.